So now we are going to enter into just a 5 to 10 minute time of interaction between Dr. Shatra of the Center for Apologetics and Cultural Engagement and our 3 student presenters tonight.
Well, is this on? Doesn't sound like it. We're good. All right. Well, thanks for hanging in here till the end. It's been a great night. Kevin, I want to start with you because you're the meanest looking of the group here. So, Kevin, I'm finding things that people could object to because this will be fun if we do it that way. So, somebody could be saying as they were listening to yours, especially from kind of a mean-looking guy, that was pretty soft. Yeah. I mean, in your approach, if somebody's going to object, they said, don't win an argument. And like, I'm the director for the Center for Apologetics. Isn't this? Aren't we supposed to be trying to win an argument? And so maybe deal with that objection a little bit.
Yeah. So I appreciate those compliments that you gave me. Right? Meanest looking. So I guess I have in mind the thought. When was the last time that someone's mind was changed when you were in an argument? Do you even have an ability to think of one? I guess what I was trying to point out is the fact that human beings are such complex creatures, and we're emotional, and we have all these beliefs and desires and all these things that influence the way we think. And so we do want to have those moments where we do point to the truth and we stand firm in that, but it's all about the position, I think, that we take when we engage with others, and that we are not these catalysts for these, emotionally charged, especially when we're dealing with very tough issues that people take very personally. And so, it's just having a certain stance, I guess, that invites more dialogue, and I think eventually would bring more change. So, yeah.
Yeah, obviously, I'm kind of kidding with you to play the other side. I think.
Yeah.
I think one of the things we're talking about is building a level of trust.
Yeah.
And we live in a society where people are always selling stuff. They have their own agendas, and they certainly can just assume that this Christian, okay, I'm going to size this Christian up. I'm going to size this person up. They have certain stereotypes about you, about us, and so we have to build that kind of level of trust. And I think that's part of human relationships. Sometimes you can build it quickly, but I think if you're going to actually win someone over to your position, then building that level of trust and seeking to do that is important. Kevin, thanks. Maria, okay, you're next, Maria.
Okay.
So if somebody's listening to David, we were talking about this over here. Somebody's listening to David Brooks's, hopefully remember that. He was talking about committing to a community, and this is really going to shape who we are. And then somebody could be listening to yours and hear you say community polarization. I don't think I got your wording exactly right, but community polarization, group polarization, and they might play that against each other. So you're saying escape group polarization. He's saying commit to a community. So you're going to take on Brooks tonight.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. But I think that as opposed to saying we're saying two opposite things, I think we're saying a very similar thing, just maybe two sides to the same coin. So he's talking about how we're built for healthy community and to commit to something greater than us. And I'm saying that a lot of marketers capitalize on that desire that's built into us, and they market unhealthy, kind of the perverted version of that. So a group that is supposed to just affirm you and your own weaknesses and make you conform to them is the opposite of what I think David Brooks would say a healthy group is, because in a healthy community, we know that we are supposed to each contribute, the body. We each as individuals bring very unique giftings and skill sets, and I think part of a healthy community is the contribution of all of those things. So in the one that I was talking about, it's sort of this like vortex of conformity that's really unhealthy. So I think it's the same thing, just sort of two different sides to it.
Yeah, so obviously obviously we're thinking, particularly I think we're going to naturally think about the church, and rightly so, and the church being this kind of, should be this kind of counterculture where we're being trained in virtue and also being trained to actually have these discussions. So even in our church, rather than just avoiding things that we disagree on, learning within the community at Liberty, i.e. conversations like this that I think can take us in the right direction here at Liberty, our institution, actually having conversations with one another about things we disagree on and learning. I mean, one of the best ways to learn humility, to maybe bridge into Jack's talk, is to actually have conversations with intelligent people who have stories that are different than our own, who have these kind of backgrounds that are different than our own, and we can't just simply say, well, he's an idiot, so let me just go on with my friends. But so that's actually the kind of communities I think that's healthy for us to create. But that's to kind of get at maybe Jack. I mean, that's kind of, even if we go back to the central part of the gospel, I mean, you have the humility of Christ who died on the cross for us. So it's actually the gospel, not just kind of secular thinking or multiculturalism, but it's actually the gospel that pushes us into this. Yeah. And really a vision, sorry, I'm preaching a little bit, but the vision of Revelation 7, we have every tribe and every tongue, and so you have these people with all these different communities. It's not just, it is one, but yet the vision that Christ has secured is one where we're not all going to be we're not all going to be exactly the same, but we will. So we'll bring that with us, and we're going to be together, of course, without the sin. We'll see clearly, but that's this vision, and now we're to be an embodiment of that today. But we know today with sin, we're going to have to work this out so we can point to the vision that's to come. Now, I went way beyond your talk, Jack. Sorry. But I wanted to just mention that as far as at a Christian institution and in our churches, to be cultivating this, not because of some kind of, hey, it's nice to be nice to one another, but because of the very gospel itself that pushes us to this telos. Yeah. So let me ask one part, Jack. I pushed everyone else, just to be fair. Let me push you a little bit. So you're talking about certainty, but do we want to say, for instance, there's certain things that we need to be more certain about? You talked about kind of this pivotal, most climactic event in human history being the cross and him rising from the grave. It seems like we should have some more, we should be more absolute about that than versus other things, and maybe speak into that.
Yeah. At one point for my talk, I had built like a little theological triage, and I was going to show, and then I poured it in some social things, but I felt like it'd be a little too much for this talk. But I think that what we see in Scripture as believers is that there are certain things that are core and essential and basic and necessary, like the deity, death, and resurrection of Christ. And everyone in culture has certain basic beliefs that they circle everything else around. And I think for believers, that's sort of this basic belief. There's a wonderful philosopher, Alvin Plantinga, who talks a lot about this and how there are, certain things that you sort of intuitively believe, and everything else you build around it. So I would say, I think my talk, as I was going through it, I think you do have a certain certainty when it comes to the gospel and the resurrection. And I think, though, even with that, you see that Jesus was performing miracles as a way to show people this and to demonstrate. It wasn't this blindness, but rather it was a understood sort of believing, knowing faith. So I think there are levels of certainty in this.
So we're going to be less certain. We're going to be less certain about some things, certain kind of cultural issues, certain things that are more complex, and also recognizing, to kind of come back to really part of the discussion, that we are situated, we are contingent beings, and so we're going to have these different stories and different perspectives. Yeah. And so we actually can learn from people who have these different perspectives, and we come actually closer to the truth on various issues.
Yeah, one of my points that I brought out that I had to pass for the time limit was that a lot of times our desire for certainty, I almost feel like, is a form of idolatry, because we're trying to move past our own contingency. We're trying to move past our own lack of knowledge and our own lack of certainty and the fact that God, as the infinite one, is the only one who really has true epistemic certainty. So there's some room there for us to even examine ourselves for idolatry and realize that God can speak into our hearts and change our minds on just about anything.
Yeah, and it's often, obviously, it's through the work of the Spirit, so it's often through, he uses people as his means. And so if we're kind of sheltering ourselves from people, especially just even within our church, within Liberty, that disagree, then we end up losing how the Lord might be, how the Lord might want to change us and really get us closer to the truth on issues. So, hey guys, thanks so much. It's your peer.